Welcome to the Archer Shaw Temple Podcast, teachings for sovereign awakening, sacred union, and embodied devotion. I'm Christopher Shaw, here with Aeon Archer. May this transmission meet you exactly where you are and open the next doorway on your path. Let us begin.
So this sermon is the sacred brain building a nervous system that can hold the divine. Let us open in prayer. Beloved source of all life, the presence that breathes through every breath, the pulse through every neuron that speaks through silence and through thunder, we arrive now. We ask for a settling, a softening, a return. Allow our minds to become clear enough to hear what is true, our nervous systems to become spacious enough to hold what is sacred. And let this teaching not be information, but transformation. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Guru Om, Amen, Aho, Ashe, and so it is. So, beloveds, today I want to speak about something we don't often name as holy, your brain. Not just your mind as an idea, but your nervous system as an instrument of perception. Because every day, whether you realize it or not, you are building a receiver, a living instrument that decides what you can register as real. And here's the core truth. Every thought, every decision, every action, and everything we expose our senses to is shaping the brain that will either recognize the sacred or forget the sacred. And that doesn't mean presence leaves. It means the receiver gets trained. Kind of like a radio. The signal can be everywhere, but if the receiver is flooded with noise, fear, compulsion, and stimulation, we will swear the station disappeared. The station didn't disappear. The receiver got trained for interference. Now, I want to share my personal story, realizing that my brain was being trained. There were years when I believed I was spiritually broken. I couldn't feel connection. I couldn't hold stillness. I assumed it meant I was beyond repair. But looking back, what I was really experiencing was this. My brain had been trained to seek intensity, escape, and stimulation. Addiction doesn't only harm the body, it trains the nervous system. It teaches your brain peace is boring. Stillness is unsafe. Silence is emptiness. And presence is too much. So the more I fed my senses chemicals, chaos, compulsions, constant input, the more my system became wired for disconnection. Not because truth wasn't there, not because the sacred wasn't reaching for me, but because my body couldn't tolerate subtlety. Because real presence, real love, often arrives without adrenaline, without the spike. It arrives in quiet clarity. And I remember the moment it clicked, not with shame, but with honesty. I don't only need a new belief system, I need a new nervous system. I need a brain that can hold peace. And that was the turning point, because the question became practical. What I repeatedly feed becomes what I can repeatedly feel. And the ancients knew this. The wisdom traditions taught this. This isn't new. The traditions have said it in many languages in many ways. One is be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That isn't only poetic, it's a training plan. The eye is the lamp of the body, meaning what you repeatedly look at becomes what you live inside. And guard your heart, not just emotion or emotional orientation, but attention, your inner posture. Across paths, the message is consistent. Your inner world is being formed, and formation determines revelation. So if you want a life that can perceive the sacred, the question becomes, what are you rehearsing daily? And neuroscience in modern times mirrors this. Modern language gives us this word, neuroplasticity. Your brain changes based on repetition. What you practice becomes easier to return to. So if you practice outrage, your brain becomes outrage ready. If you practice fear, your system becomes threat-shaped. Numbness, you lose sensitivity. Constant stimulation equals stillness becoming intolerable. Craving without reverence, appetite replaces communion. However, if you practice prayer and meditation, presence becomes more accessible. If you practice gratitude, your attention finds grace much faster. Compassion, the body returns to love more easily. And stillness, your spiritual sensitivity returns. That I can definitely attest for. And this is not moralism, it's mechanics. The brain you build determines what reality feels like. And this is the truth I want to give you. The brain you build determines the level of the sacred you can experience, not because source changes, but because your ability to recognize that source is either strengthened or weakened. Now, I want to draw attention to the great spiritual warfare of our era, and that is attention. The battlefield is clear. The great spiritual war of our era is our attention, because attention is the doorway of devotion. Our culture trains attention to be divided, reactive, addicted to novelty, flooded with stimulation, and unable to stay on one thing long enough to become holy. It is a commodity that every enterprise and every business is marketing, is trying to gather our attention. That is the real currency of our modern era. So people often say, I can't feel connected. I feel numb. I feel distant. And sometimes it's not that spirit is absent, it's that our nervous systems have been trained to require noise. We've built minds that panic in quiet. And then we wonder why devotion feels so hard. And this isn't a personal failure. It's the environment that we're living in. And that means the path is also clear. To reclaim your attention is to reclaim your spiritual sovereignty. I want to repeat that. To reclaim your attention is to reclaim your spiritual sovereignty, your spiritual authority in your own life. Now, I'm going to share a second personal story here when the receiver became clear. I've had moments, especially in ceremony, where everything simplified. Not in a dramatic fantasy way, but like reality seemed to sharpen. When intention became single, when the body softened, when the heart became coherent, it felt like the room became one field, one breath, one nervous system. And what I realized was this: presence wasn't arriving, presence was being recognized. The signal had always been there. The receiver was finally tuned to see it. And what struck me most wasn't only mystical, it was physiological. I could feel old survival energy releasing, like static leaving the system, like the body was unlearning interference. And I remember thinking, this is why practice matters. This is why inputs matter. This is why devotion is a discipline, because the sacred is subtle, and subtlety requires sensitivity. Now, I want to speak to the senses and why they're so important. The senses are gateways. And this is the heart of today's teaching. What you expose your senses to is a spiritual choice, not in a shaming way, but in an awakening way. So I invite you to ask yourself, what am I training my mind to crave? What am I normalizing in my nervous system? What am I rehearsing, fear or faith? And what am I consuming that makes stillness unbearable? Because the senses are gates. What enters through those gates becomes your inner climate, and your inner climate becomes your spiritual weather. And some people, they want the fruits, peace, clarity, love, while feeding their brain constant comparison, doom, lust without reverence, and outrage. And then ask themselves, why do I feel far? Beloved, if you keep pouring poison into the receiver and expect the station to sound clear, it's not going to happen. This isn't punishment, it's alignment. However, there is really good news. There is hope. If your brain was shaped, it can be reshaped. If your attention was captured, it can be reclaimed. If your nervous system was trained for survival, it can be trained for safety. If your mind was trained for craving, it can be trained for communion. And I want to say this clearly, small daily devotion is so much stronger than occasional intensity. Because you're not trying to visit presence, you're building a life that can hold remembrance. Now, I want to offer 3 practical commitments for you this week. Commitment 1, choose your inputs with intention. Choose what you focus on. Choose where your attention goes intentionally. Before you consume content, conversation, or any kind of stimulation, ask, will this make presence easier to recognize in me? If not, reduce it. Just a little bit of awareness. And where we are allowing our attention to go goes a really long way. And don't do this from a place of shame, but from a place of power, from a place of sovereignty. Commitment number 2, build a simple daily ritual. Keep it small, keep it consistent. It doesn't have to be elaborate, doesn't have to be full of incense and mantras. Keep it simple. That's the bedrock of devotion, is simplicity. Because again, spirit is subtle. So I offer you the 3-3 ritual, 3 things in the morning, 3 things in the evening. In the morning, it takes 3 minutes. Place your hand on your heart, hand on the belly, take 3 deep breaths, and whisper, Source, tune me to truth. Let me be led by presence today. In 1 sentence, today I practice holy attention. I practice holy attention. That is you claiming that I am going to move through my day with intention and where I place my attention. And then whisper, and then in the evening, take 3 deep breaths, hand on the belly, or hand on the heart, hand on the belly, and name 3 things you're grateful for. And then say, I release what isn't mine to carry, and I return to peace. It's much easier to go to sleep after this ritual than if I just put my phone down beside my bed, plug it in, and lay down and close my eyes. I promise you this. And then finally, commitment 3, practice holy attention in ordinary moments. Focus and attention is like a muscle. It's something we have to practice. And so when we practice this in small moments throughout our day, like when you take a drink of water, just being present with the full experience, the glass touching your lips, the sensation of the water sliding down your throat, the action of picking up the glass to your mouth, all of these things are practicing that muscle of intentional attention. It's practicing that muscle of claiming sovereignty over your actions. And be present when you take a walk. Notice the birds chirping, the sensation of the air as it brushes against your skin, the smell of the air, the colors that are all around you. All of those things are inputs coming into the gates of your senses. And you're choosing what to focus on. And practicing in those little small moments goes a long way to learning how to put up boundaries towards all of the things that are siphoning your attention away from you, that are commodifying you and your attention. Presence is not a mood. Like I said, it's a muscle. Now, beloveds, your brain is not merely chemistry. It is undoubtedly a sacred instrument. And your attention is not a mere detail. It is your altar. So may you build a mind clear enough to hear truth. May you build a nervous system spacious enough to hold love. And may you build a life disciplined enough to protect devotion. And may you remember presence was never far, only waiting for the receiver to become still enough to recognize the signal. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Guru Om, Amen, Aho, Ashe, and so it is. And now, to help us embody this, not just hear it, Christopher is going to guide us into a practice that helps the nervous system settle and helps the receiver tune.
Okay, beloved family, let's take a moment now to let this teaching move from understanding into embodiment. There is nothing to do, nothing to achieve, and nothing to analyze. Simply allow yourself to arrive. If it feels comfortable, let your eyes close or soften your gaze. Letting your body settle into whatever is supporting you, the chair, the floor, or the earth. And take a slow, deep breath in through the nose. And a longer, slower breath out through the mouth. Again, inhaling through the nose. And exhaling through the mouth, allowing your system to downshift. Before anything else, receive this truth. You do not need to force your nervous system into holiness. It already knows how to return. So bringing your attention gently to the body. Notice your forehead, letting it soften. Noticing your jaw, unclench it just 1 degree. Noticing your shoulders, letting them drop. And now place one hand over the heart and the other over the belly. Feeling the rise and fall of the breath beneath your hands. You are not controlling the breath. You are listening to it. This is the receiver beginning to quiet. Silently inside yourself, repeat this. It is safe to be present. Breathing in. Breathing out. And letting the body agree with that just a little. Now imagine the nervous system like a clear channel. Not broken, not damaged, simply busy. And with each exhale, imagine static releasing. Old urgency, old noise, old survival energy that doesn't need to be carried right now. You don't even need to name it. Just let it drain downward into the earth. And on the inhale, imagine spaciousness returning. On the exhale, imagine interference dissolving. And gently repeat inwardly, I release what interferes with truth. No force, no struggle, just allowing. Now bring your awareness to the center of your chest. not to create emotion, but to notice presence. The heart does not strain to feel the sacred. It recognizes it. Imagine a soft, steady light there. Not dramatic, not intense, just clear. This is what devotion actually feels like when the system is regulated, quiet, coherent, and stable. And now repeat silently, I train my attention toward what is real. And notice how attention behaves when it's gentle, how it naturally rests. This is the brain learning peace again. Now we seal the teaching with a simple embodied intention. You don't need a plan. You don't need a vision. Just one orientation. Silently, inwardly say, I choose inputs that make presence easier to recognize. And let that land not as a rule, but as a kindness. And then say, small daily devotion is enough. And feel how the body responds to that truth. Notice if anything softens. Beginning to notice the room again, the sounds around you, the temperature of the air, the support beneath your body. Taking one more slow breath in and exhale fully. And when you're ready, gently opening your eyes and coming back to this place.
Thank you for being here with us at Archer Temple. If something in this teaching helped your body soften or brought you back into yourself, let it keep moving. Share it with someone who's ready. This temple is sustained through conscious participation, through those who feel the resonance and choose to support the work from clarity, not pressure. If you feel called into right exchange, you're welcome to support the mission on Venmo at Merkaba Temple, all one word. And if you'd like to go deeper, you can schedule a complimentary soul alignment session at archershaw.guru. Until next time, take care of your nervous system, walk gently, and stay close to what's true.